Hello and welcome to CATSweek. I'm Annalise Poorman. The Monroe County Board of Health met on Thursday, March 20th. During public comment, County resident Melanie Davis spoke to the board about a name and gender change that was denied. Davis expressed concern that there has not been enough clarity to help people impacted to navigate the executive order instated by Governor Mike Braun.
I had a friend come in earlier, I guess a week ago, who had a court order to change her daughter's name and birth gender on her birth certificate. And that was denied. And we've gone through a lot. They're actually trying to seek legal counsel through the ACLU. I understand this has been something that was handed down from the state. So it's not just Monroe County, but actually, I mean, I can't ask questions, but I would like some clarification on who handed this down, where this came from, where we can find more information on this, because this is, I understand it's in respect to the executive orders from Governor Braun. However, it's going to affect a lot of people, including people who, like myself, who are members of the intersex community. I didn't find out until I was an adult. I'm also transgender because I was raised as male. But people who are intersex also will be impacted by this. And there's no clarity. There's nothing that's been put out for the public. There's been nothing that would help people navigate this and also find redress.
Health Department Director Lori Kelly explained that the local county vital records department is able to make name changes. However, they can only request a gender change, and then the Indiana Department of Health is in charge of making the gender change.
Guidance in the past that we have received historically is that the Indiana Department of Health is the organization that makes gender changes. So when individuals present to the health department, we do have access to go in and make name changes. The process then goes to submitting a ticket to the Indiana Department of Health to have a gender change made. What we received from the Indiana Department of Health on March 14th was that they will no longer process gender change requests. And so that's kind of the situation I think we've been dealing with now.
So it's counties between a rock and a hard place if they have a parent come in with a court order saying to change the gender, yet IDOH is saying don't change the gender.
IDOH actually is the one who goes in and makes that change.
Okay.
And we have been instructed that we cannot make that change, that it goes through the Indiana Department of Health.
Chair of the board, Aurora DiOrio, followed up asking for clarification. County Registrar Kathy Hertz responded.
Forgive my ignorance of how the data system works, but we in vital records, we can request some change be made, but we can't actually make the change. Is that a good way to say it or no?
The state has always mandated local health departments not do gender changes. They will never tell us why, but they said we can do the name change, but we have to put in a request for them to do the gender change. So following that instruction, last week, with what I assume was your friend, they told us they were not going to do them anymore, citing the governor's order. And I am holding a court order instructing anyone issuing an identity document to change the gender, and they wouldn't do it. They have told us we're not allowed to do it. So,
okay, so
that's where we are.
between a rock and a hard place.
The state registrar and division director at the Indiana Department of Health reached out to county health departments with guidance on the new executive order. County Attorney Dave Schilling explained what the guidance entails.
Basically, this sets forth all the statutory requirements relating to the creation of birth records and the role of the health department in it. So the court's order is basically saying we're directing anybody that has issues identity records, including the State Board of Health and its subsidiaries. So we're establishing that we're a subsidiary, talks about the process that we go through. And then it talks about the state requirements for maintaining birth records on the Indiana birth record system. And it notes that we also have our own birth records system for people born up to 2006. And that's under the county control. So what the county is doing, and then after that, it's the state record. The state has been maintaining records on the Indiana birth record system. So what this report is basically saying is when we get an order from the court, we change the name and the gender marker on our local system. We have the authority to change the name on the state system, but not the gender marker. So then we send it up to the state. We used to send it up with a ticket. Then they've let us know that they're not even processing those tickets until they hear from the Attorney General. So we just send copies of the order to the State Board of Health, their vital records response team or whatever it's called. And that just lets the court know that's what we're doing. And if a record comes in that, is 2006 before, we'll change it on ours. If not, then we send it to the state.
So we will, I just want to be super clear for everybody before we have a discussion. So we will change gender on a record that we have control over, which means 2006 and older.
I think that's what we've been doing.
Okay. And we don't have control of anything newer, like 2007 on. So we are unable to change that.
Oh, we can only change the name
Okay.
because the state has authorized us to do that.
The Board of Health voted to submit a legal report which documents the Monroe County Health Department's compliance with the court order to change a petitioner's name and gender marker on local birth records, despite Governor Braun's executive order prohibiting state agencies from processing gender marker changes. County Health Board members discussed what the report entails.
This would be, the intent of this is to possibly file this with the issuing court, just to let the court know that the county has complied with its order to the extent it can.
Basically, this outlines the circumstance how we went about making our decision, really.
The form of this document here could be easily adapted to any word that walks in. We can just plug in the cause notes and other things. But Lisa, the ticket, if somebody comes in with an order, we'll do the ticket process with the state and then file this, which basically says we've changed on our records and done the ticket process with the state.
Okay.
The board voted unanimously to file the legal report in the Monroe Circuit Court. The Monroe County Board of Health will meet again on April 17th. The Monroe County Women's Commission met on March 20th. During commissioner updates, Commissioner Juliet Hardesty shared what her goals are as vice chair of the commission.
I do want to say happy first day of spring, whether or not it feels like it. And also happy Women's History Month, and let's go make some women's history now. So I'm vice chair this year, and what I'm interested in doing, I'm kind of wanting to see what you all think, but I'm interested in what information is available about the status of women in Monroe County. And it's been something I've maybe been kind of circling around a bit for a while, but I'm interested in digging into that a little bit, and I'm also interested in what information is not available. That's kind of the other side of it. And then the sources of any information, and if that's like community organizations or local or county government, state level or federal level, and if the information has been available and is removed or no longer made available. I think I'm kind of interested in looking at that as time goes on this year. I think there are some topics of information that seem like they're pretty easy to come by for Monroe County, such as wage gap for women, number of women-owned businesses, life expectancy, age group trends countywide, that sort of thing. I think those seem to be like they're going to be pretty easy to find, but there are other topics related to the status of women, like the number of women experiencing homelessness, number of women property owners, trends in contraception and miscarriage and abortion and birth support in the county, the number of women supporting children in the home, the percentage of women in elected positions, trends in childcare support, trends in gender affirming care, trends in postmenopausal health care, and topics that impact other marginalized genders. And those, I think, are going to be more difficult to get at. But things like that, I'm kind of interested to see what we can find out that can give us a way to share a fuller picture of the lived experience of marginalized genders in Monroe County than what we can share even as the members of the Women's Commission like we are. So I'm planning on researching a topic for each meeting and sharing what I'm finding or not finding.
Hardesty continued to explain her goal to provide an update at each meeting about what information is available to the community and what is not available on the status of women in Monroe County.
As a very basic baseline of information, at the federal level, the United States Census has a quick facts sheet on Monroe County, Indiana. So this is not just Bloomington, but it's all of Monroe County. And at the estimated total population of Monroe County as of July 1st, 2024, so that's July of last year, is 140,702 people. And they also estimate that of that population, 50.3% of that population is female. So that puts the estimate at 70,773 people are women. So the topics we'll be getting into impact more than half of the population in Monroe County. Can consider things that way. The topics we might not be able to find out anything about impact more than half the people in Monroe County. And the historic inequities that have existed for over 200 years since the founding of this county in 1818 now affect more than half the people in the county. So I'm not going to get into any particular topic today, but because I want to hear, I'm kind of interested to hear what you all think about this as a concept and what sorts of things you might think or you're considering are important to find out more about. But this is what I'd like to focus on for the remainder of my time as vice chair when I'm giving updates. So we can see where it takes us.
Later in the meeting, Hardesty shared a presentation that she's been working on with Commissioner Maria Douglas to present to Monroe County Commissioners to contribute to the conversation of the new jail.
To get a little bit of background on this, this kind of came out of work that the Monroe County Women's Commission did when we were considering issues around the new Monroe County Jail in terms of women and marginalized genders. And we were doing this work in 2023 and 2024. And we were arriving at topics that we wanted to make sure were brought up and considered around things like separate areas needed for safety based on gender, things like needing menstruation supplies provided, needing care for pregnancy, giving birth, and childcare when people are incarcerated, and then diversion support needing to include childcare support and reentry support needing to include childcare support. So making sure those sorts of things were being considered when a new facility and a new system for the Monroe County Jail was being considered. Working on this, we started contemplating that this lens of supporting and improving conditions for marginalized genders could be used to evaluate policies and ordinances as well, and improve the lives of all county residents by centering and elevating gender equity concerns. So we are proposing this gender equity rubric to the Monroe County Commissioners as a tool that they can use to help mitigate these inequities and produce better ordinances and policies that are better explained and maintained for everyone in our community.
She went over the next steps and recommendations for implementing the gender equity rubric.
The next steps for this are we hope to finalize these, finalize the rubric and the guidelines, possibly with another test run on a county ordinance or policy. I think it would be interesting to see this in more of a conversational setting where multiple people are trying this out. And then we're interested, if it's possible, to publish both the rubric and the guidelines on the Monroe County Women's Commission webpage. And at that point, it's a tool that is available for public use. So it would not be just something that county government or local government could use. It's something that businesses could consider, community organizations could consider, anyone that is putting policies into place.
Commission members recommend that they reach out to a subject matter expert like a gender equity professor at Indiana University before they present to the commissioners. The Monroe County Women's Commission will meet again on April 17th. The Waste Reduction District Citizens Advisory Committee met on March 20th. Executive Director at Waste Reduction District of Monroe County, Tom Glasson, gave an update on legislation that could impact the county.
There was a number of bills, this legislative session that we were monitoring. And of all the ones that we were monitoring, only 3 House bills and 1 Senate bill actually made it over to the other chamber. And at this point, none of the 4 had any action. And 1 has actually had a hearing and they held it in committee. They said they would bring it back up, but they held it in committee for the time being. But so the bills that are still moving, 1 was originally drafted to address executive sessions of a governing body and add some additional topics that would be covered by the executive sessions. Well, that's still there. That's since been amended to, for lack of a better way to phrase it, it appears that somebody added amendments trying to fix all of the virtual meeting stuff that was rushed through when COVID hit. So they're shoring up some of the requirements of, the virtual components of public meetings. And the one tidbit that's in there is it does provide a mechanism for the public to challenge the actions taken at a meeting if there's a problem with the virtual, any disruption of the streaming or it's any technological failure. So that's something that we're watching. Another House bill had to do with doing public notices on a website that the state would establish that would satisfy the statutory public notice requirements. That did make it out of the House into the Senate. Obviously, the newspaper lobby is very vocal against that bill. That is the one that did get 1 hearing in the Senate committee and is still in that committee. Another one is a bill that has to do, title is waste disposal. But what it does is define illegal dumping and make that a criminal offense, misdemeanor. So that's one that we're pleased to see and following. And it made it through the House 95-0. Well, it certainly has bipartisan support there.
He continued to explain that 1 bill could impact them financially if they have to focus on cybersecurity.
The 1 Senate bill we're watching is an environmental matters bill, but what it has in it is cybersecurity requirements for a publicly owned wastewater treatment works, which the leachate treatment plant at the landfill would qualify, would be defined as publicly owned treatment work. So that's one that we're watching because that would certainly, if it goes through, would have an impact on us. And, potentially a financial impact that may or may not be significant. But I understand the purpose behind the bill. Talked to a couple of senators and requested that maybe an amendment be proposed to have it apply to facilities that are doing over X thousand gallons a day. So, I don't view our facility that's doing 25,000 gallons a day as a priority target for somebody that really wants to do something.
The next meeting of the Waste Reduction District Citizens Advisory Committee will happen on April 17th. The Monroe County Plan Commission met on March 18th. The commission held the final hearing for the Southern Meadows Major Subdivision Preliminary Plat Amendment 2. Senior Planner Drew Myers presented a summary of the request.
The petitioner requests to amend the phasing schedule of the Southern Meadows Major Subdivision Preliminary Plat. Phases 1, 2, and 3 have been platted and recorded. The acquisition of building permits and the construction of single-family residences within each of the 3 phases is ongoing. The petitioner now requests new configuration of phases 4 through 6. Phase 4 will be split up into 2 non-contiguous sections with a total of 16 lots and will include the construction of the road connection to South College Drive. Phase 5 will be reconfigured and consists of 10 lots. Phase 6 will be split up into 2 non-contiguous sections with a total of 10 lots and will include the construction of the asphalt side path to Clear Creek Elementary. Although Phase 4 and Phase 6 involve non-contiguous sections, each phase will be built out as if it were one contiguous phase. And after reviewing the language in the 1997 Subdivision Control Ordinance, the legal department confirmed that the Subdivision Control Ordinance does not preclude developers from using this strategy for configuring subdivision phases. The approval of this preliminary plat amendment will retain the original plan for the roadway connection to South College Drive to occur within Phase 4, and the additional turn lane on South Old State Road 37 onto South Orchard Lane will also remain with Phase 4 under this preliminary plat amendment. The asphalt side path to Clear Creek Elementary will remain with Phase 6. So some new language with this update for tonight's meeting. This preliminary plat amendment also involves a change to the written commitment. See Exhibits 7 and 8 in the staff report with respect to the improvements currently detailed to occur under Phase 4 through Phase 6. The written commitment amendment, specifically Exhibit 8, updates the timeline for completion of these offsite improvements and establishes commitments to the timing of their completion. For example, the petitioner commits to the installation of the roadway from South Abington Avenue to South College Drive to be installed prior to recording the final plat for Phase 4, save for final asphalt coat, sidewalks, and street trees.
During public comment on the development, county residents Randy Cassidy and Tammy Wickle Cassidy said that they want the improvements that were promised to be followed through and asked the commission to help facilitate that.
I hope that we're able to move this forward so that these improvements can get done, especially the ones that were committed to by the developer before the current owners even owned that property and before I was even allowed to bring a petition forward for my PUD. The Plan Commission committed or made the developer commit to making these improvements along South Roger Street and that road. So please do what it takes, for that to be able to get done. The only reason there's not a floodway permit is because there were 2 permits. And once you have a second permit and it expires with the state, it is not renewable. It would not have been allowed to expire. We inquired about it last year. It's why we rushed to get our sewer laterals across under South Roger Street and get done and get out of the floodway so that our work on CINL side is out of the floodway for phases 1 and 2. So please honor those commitments that the county made last time because that was all part of our tearing down our building and allowing them to come through and make the road to connect to their project. Otherwise, they would have had no connection at all. So they made commitments to us as well to do that road, to do that improvement, to do that intersection. And please, let's promote what it takes to help them get it done, not to hinder it.
Commissioner Tron Enright Randolph said that the petition has had issues, but that he thinks that the amendment with the changes is the best solution.
There's a lot of petitions that kind of don't necessarily move in the ideal manner, and we've seen a few of those. I do think what planning has put together allows us to move forward and achieve those public improvement projects. And also, I think there's a few other commitments with kind of the multi-use trail connection and other things that wouldn't have been put in place until they got to those certain phases. So I'm willing to support this. It's not a position I like to be in because there's been a lot of issues with this petition, but I feel like this is the best situation that we have.
Commissioner David Henry thanked everyone for the work that they've done.
I just want to thank both staff and petitioner for their perseverance on working through this. I know we've been on this matter for a few months now, or at least since I've been involved with Plan Commission, and to get to a place where we can get to an accommodation to move forward. I also just want to say again, I do appreciate that we will have another ingress and egress in that neighborhood for our emergency services personnel to get in and out of there, which was a priority concern of mine as we moved this through. So thank you all concerned.
Thank you. Thank you. Does anyone else care to say something? I just want to say one thing. I think the testimony tonight really describes how interrelated all these moving parts are. And we are a community, and we want all of the approved projects to be successful and to not be as cost enhancing for the developers. And so we do have to be concerned about the safety of the property owners and of future property owners and of people who currently live there. And so I really commend staff and the petitioner for working through this and coming up with a solution. We hope we can get DNR on board sooner rather than later, but there are a lot of moving parts. So thank you for working through that.
Commission President Margaret Clements also spoke on the work that they've done to collaborate with the developers and current residents in the area.
I think the testimony tonight really describes how interrelated all these moving parts are. And we are a community, and we want all of the approved projects to be successful and to not be as cost enhancing for the developers. And so we do have to be concerned about the safety of the property owners and of future property owners and of people who currently live there. And so I really commend staff and the petitioner for working through this and coming up with a solution. We hope we can get DNR on board sooner rather than later, but there are a lot of moving parts. So thank you for working through that.
Commissioner Jeff Morris motioned to approve the preliminary plat Amendment 2.
For case SPP-24-4, the Southern Meadows Major Subdivision Preliminary Plat Amendment 2, I move approval of the preliminary plat amendment to alter the phasing subject to highway engineer and stormwater program manager reports with the conditions listed in the packet.
The commission voted 7-0 to approve it. The Monroe County Plan Commission will meet again on April 15th. And that is all for CATSweek. Thank you for joining us. For CATS and WFHB, I'm Annalise Poorman.